welcome to the New Conversation. I'm Dwight McBride, president of the New School. At the New School, we believe in the power of conversations. This series, where I talk to notable people from all corners of the cultural landscape, is just one of the ways that we're showing the value of thoughtful, sometimes critical conversation. Please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can catch future episodes. Today's guest is a great friend of mine, the comedian and performer, Kate Clinton. She's written 3 books. She's taught on the power of humor in cultural and political change, and she's received recognitions from groups like the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, the Lambda Literary Awards, and the GLAAD Media Awards. Most importantly, she's just really funny and really smart, and I'm very glad to have her here with us today. Kate, thank you so much for being here with me today and coming on this program.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
I have been looking forward to this. Even after this crazy, as one of my colleagues called it, 15-month-long year, it still feels a little strange to be having these conversations over the internet. But I guess we're all kind of used to it now, and maybe it's a thing that'll be sticking around, like a new hobby. I don't know, like baking bread or knitting. I'm gonna go do my hair and talk to my friend from a place where drinks are really cheap and I don't have to get on the subway. So it's delightful to have you here today in whatever form it takes, even here on Zoom.
Well, it's been a pleasure preparing for it, to get to talk, to think about humor and what I do. It's not something I've been thinking about a lot for the last 15 months. And it's good to know that I am so much more than breaking down boxes. And when you got in touch with me, I envisioned that we would be like pretend it's a city, and I would be the Fran Lebowitz, and you would be the Martin Scorsese, and the glasses are almost there.
I love that, because having gone through that entire season now, I absolutely fell in love. And as a newcomer to New York, it was an amazing way to be sort of introduced to my city that I, of course, have had the strangest introduction to. I mean, people keep asking me. I just moved here a year ago, a little over a year ago, right in the week that the lockdown started. And so haven't really had a chance to explore the city. And this is a question I always ask to everybody who comes for this new conversation: is what first drew you to comedy, and when did you know you were funny and you wanted to be a comedian?
So I come from a family of 5. I have 3 brothers, and they're lovely people, and they all played football. And so in the off season, I was the battering ram. I was the tackle dummy. So I found if I could make them laugh, they would they would fall down and I would be fine. So I realized that was a strategy. So, and then in 2nd grade, and this I think was the beginning of the performativity of comedy. The 2nd grade, I was in a talent show, and I lip synced. What was my first clue? Lip synced "I'm Getting Nothing for Christmas." And I'm in 2nd grade, and I saw the 4th grade teacher fall off her chair from laughing. And I thought, oh, this is what I want to do. But then, there wasn't, on career day, it was never comedy. So when I was coming up, there were 2 things you could do. A woman could do. They could be a teacher, or they could be a nurse. And I don't do blood. So I became a high school English teacher. And so when I started to perform, people were like, what club did you train in? And I was like, I taught high school English for 8 years.
Best training in the world.
The toughest crowd. And I learned when I taught that what you have to remember is don't say anything important in the first 5 minutes of your show, of your class, because all they're doing is looking at what you're wearing. And it was great. So that's basically how I got into comedy, on a dare, because I'd been talking about wanting to try it. And my best friend booked me in a club and said, "You're on in a month." And we put up a sign in this little bar, and that was my first show.
Wow. In your book, the What the L, and I'll ask you to say a word or two about that title, which you explain in the book as well. You write, and I'll quote you now, In addition to the frivolous, salutary pleasure of laughing, I believe in the power of laughter to subvert authority and promote democracy. Laughter takes the tyranny of the lies that we are told and told and told, and it blows them apart. I espouse humor activism. I am in love with that, with well, one, with the book itself, but with that phrasing, with that constellation of thoughts. Tell me what you mean by that. What does that mean to you, especially in this moment?
Yeah, yeah. First of all, I don't know if you've ever seen a comedian who's introduced as the Hannah Arendt of comedy, who was on your faculty. Congratulations.
Hannah Arendt is
Well,
a
and,
well-known fixture at the New School. Absolutely, very important to us.
and Margaret Mead.
Oh yeah,
I used to
absolutely.
dress up as Margaret Mead every Halloween, cut in some bangs, a little schmata, some sensible shoes, a stick, and I'm off to study other cultures. Oh my God, it's fabulous. But so I really am a faith-based comedian. I believe a lot about humor and what it can do. And what I call humor activism is, being in a situation, and I've done it, and it's wonderful when someone is telling you the biggest pile of lies you've ever heard, and you kind of nod and nod, and then you take this wonderful pause and you just bust out laughing. And you go, oh my God, you don't mean, you mean that. Oh, wow. And what it happens is they never can say that thing again with any degree of, confidence or certainty, and you've like blown it apart. And I think that's a really important thing to do, and we can do in this time. And the other thing that I love about performing and doing comedy is it is an example of democracy, because what it is, and I could ask people after, so, what did you laugh at? What happened? What were you thinking? And so everyone laughs at the same time. So there's that unity. And then you ask someone what actually made them laugh. It could be surprise, it could be embarrassment, but it's often all kinds of different perspectives. So in that one moment, I think it's really exciting and kind of holy that what we have unity and diversity, multiplicity. And so I think it's absolutely an underrated an unused weapon in our arsenal against what we're up against.
Well, it's like for me, even the title of the book itself, "What the L," and you talk about that. There's a list of things that L stands in for, L words, but it's also a play. I mean, you play with language in these ways that is fascinating as a writer, where L is also ELLE. It's she in French. It's the L word, lesbian. It is
Ellen DeGeneres. It was Ellen DeGeneres.
It was Ellen DeGeneres even, and you talk about that, and you mention her in that list in the book. So when you think about comedy, and one of the things you talk about it as a force for political change, a kind of activism. Talk to me a little bit about how you have used humor to really affect progress, particularly around LGBTQ rights, women's rights, issues that you've been involved in for much of your life. How have you used it in those contexts?
It's a wonderful thing to think about. I started in 1981, the same year that Reagan and the Pope started, which was like like forgive and forget, the two of them. And I started in 81, and I actually called myself a lesbian comedian. Which was like, my friends were like a sophisticated suicidal death wish. It's like, what happened was it was visible, and it was what I talked about. And so what happened is, in a show, women would come and who had been in the closet, and I would start a show by saying, thank you for coming out. And I always meant it, because they were like driving around the theater and not wanting to come in. So it was a visibility. So that was a building community that I did.
I think you can't overstate that too, because a lot of people watching this, particularly younger folks, really don't appreciate how difficult it was to be coming out in the early 80s, right? It just is a very different political landscape than the one.
I had bomb threats. I mean, they would like do the dogs in the theater before I'd go in. And I never thought about it. I said, well, they said there's nothing in there, so I'll go in. It's like, but it was really intense. Or I remember coming out of a theater in Ottawa, the capital of Canada, and as I was going out, they said to me, everybody that goes out right now is being photographed.
Right.
That's how it was. So, but in 1981, I started and I was always kept notes on cards. And on the 13th card that I had, index card, there was gay cancer,
Hmm.
AIDS. And so that period, finally, I started coming out of the wonderful and deeply preparatory time that I had, entertaining lesbians to a more gay, we were doing protests, we were doing fundraising to do things, and using, I think part of ACT UP was their use of humor, deadly humor,
Yeah.
which
Oh, yeah.
we should still have. But so that was very important, and I became more political. And then, of course, as you might guess, in 1988, I met Urvashi, who is an incredible organizer, and she would come to my shows and she would say, well, that was good, but you need to do more politics. So I just kept doing more politics. And I started to do things like I emceed the rally marches on Washington. It's like I looked at it, 1 million people. What?
Yeah.
Little teacher from upstate. And then I did dinners, I did conferences where the material was so intense, and then I would be like, hello, and try to lift it up. Uh,
Yeah.
and it turns out I'm a very good fundraiser. I had no idea, but that it's a skill. And
Yeah. Well,
just
and
because I have no math skills, I can never remember the bid. I can't add in public, and it was like whatever. But so all of those things got me to be more political, and absolutely, my dear partner has way politicized me.
yeah. Well, you brought up Urvashi, so I that opened the door. So I want to just, I mean, because I think of you two as, the, and you're going to hate me for saying this, but the original power couple. I mean, I love the two of you dearly, and both of you have done so much around gender equality, LGBTQ equality and issues, and are continuing to work in those veins, both through your work, your comedy, your activism, Urbashi's work, her act. And just tell me, what has that been like? I mean, you guys have been the power couple for so long, doing this work together. Just what is that like from the inside out? I only see it from the outside in, and I know you two better than most.
She still can't make a bed. I won't show you what is passing for a bed right now, but I feel like we're the marriage of comedy and tragedy, and we never claim which is which.
Yeah.
I have learned some Urvashi's, she's a Desi from India, so it has been a at-home questioning of my white privilege, which has gone on for 33 years, and I am the better for it.
Yeah.
And it has been such a process. And she's so it's been stunning. It's just been, I'm grateful as anything. She's absolutely brilliant. Sometimes I look at her, she speaks in whole paragraphs, and I'm just like, everything boils down to, like one thing, and it's a quick one-liner.
Well, I'd agree with that, except in your writing. In your writing, you also speak in these amazing whole paragraphs as well.
Thank you.
Well, sticking with comedy for a moment, I want to ask you about some of these new platforms. I can't say that I have a lot of personal experience with them myself, but lots of amazing things happening on TikTok, for example. And I just wonder, what do you think of all of that? Do you have a relationship to it? Thoughts about it?
What I'm interested in about it is how it has changed comedy. Because now, especially now, there's not, and my heart goes out to the people that are running the late night shows, and I think they've done a great from their basements back to their studios. But I think that, first of all, a meme is like a one-liner.
Hmm.
It's a one-liner, it's a one joke, which really puts a lot of pressure on you if you're actually saying it.
Yeah.
How to construct it. There's also a way that the internet has made everything so accessible so quickly that it's scary. I mean, 2 summers ago, and internet access out here used to be horrible. You'd see everybody standing, out in the parking lot at night trying to get, but now it's fine. So what that means is, in other shows that I would do in other summers, I would say something happened in Yemen, and they would be like, "What? What happened?" And then, but now,
Yeah.
as I'm going into my show, somebody goes, "Are you going to do anything about Hungary?" I'm like, "What happened?" It's a whole different expectation,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
makes me realize that I'm not, as a writer, I'm not that, stand-up joke one, of the day, as much as I want to be more of like a monthly magazine,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
allows me to go under the surface and make connections.
And to curate a bit more too. I mean,
Exactly.
it allows you to curate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, are there any young up and coming comedians that you really admire? Think highly of?
I do have to say, and she's not a stand-up comic, but she's one of the most hilarious people I've ever read. Like, you read it and you think, I have been on an acid trip. What is going on? And she's hilarious and so serious. Her name is Patricia Lockwood, and
Uh-huh.
she did this memoir called Priest Daddy, and then she's just done her first novel, and it is just stunning. It's so moving and so deep, and it's about the internet,
Yeah.
and it's about life, and it is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, and hilarious, laugh out loud funny.
Wow. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
Um, so, Kate, so much of your career has been about making people laugh about some pretty serious things, right? Discrimination, misogyny, climate change, political violence, right? Uh,
Times.
I want to ask you about the most recent sort of thing that we're all still finding our way through, and that's the pandemic. Um, and and I haven't heard a lot of jokes about the pandemic, right? And I don't know, maybe it's too soon, but just what are you thinking about why we're not hearing that kind of comedy yet about the pandemic? Is it just too soon? Is it just timing?
It is, I think I was thinking about, 9/11, when
Mm,
9/11 happened, and then how people, too soon, when could you talk about it? And what I don't think people ever did talk about it that much, but
yeah.
what they talked about is what they were doing that day, how things changed for them.
Mhm.
And but there was a time it happened, and then there was this period where people were thinking about it, and then they were making the jokes. But this is it just goes on, and I don't think that people have the distance to talk about it yet.
Mhm.
Except,
Mhm.
they're a lame joke about breaking down boxes in the beginning of a conversation. You know,
Right. Right.
it's
Seems
I
like
just
Amazon has become all of our friend during,
oh, it's
for
just
better or worse.
sick.
So is there anything surprising that you've learned about yourself or otherwise during this pandemic, um, during this time?
I am surprised at the uh, uh, how unreal my goals have been. Like, novel, I'm going to learn Spanish finally. It's like, what? Um, but that so what I've learned is that I love ramping down the pace a bit.
Mhm.
That's been wonderful. And as a comedian who traveled all the time, it's
Yeah.
been lovely to actually be able to say for like weeks in a row, it's trash night. Oh, it's and that kind of routine. And I think it's like also been about not being afraid to have a little quiet time and actually thinking and writing.
Yeah. That's certainly been the case for me too, both trash night and the writing as well.
I think the thing that's really thrown off people during the pandemic is at the same time that happened, Trump left office, and he was like the no, every you just talked about him all the time, and so with that huge vacuum, people are like, and they're relearning and kind of retooling, a harder piece of work.
Oh yeah, and also it's just amazing how actually soothed I am by just a normal White House press briefing. Just it's just it almost brought me to tears the first time I saw it. I was like, wow, oh wow, yes, this is what it can be like, right?
And our Jen, and you
It's
can
just
see
fabulous.
I know you can see people beginning a question like they had to in other press conferences with like Huckabee, and you can see them going, "Oh, I don't have to do that way," and just stopping and then going, "Okay, this is the question." I think it's fabulous. It's like
Um,
a second vaccine.
fully vaccinated, very
Yeah.
happy, yes.
Mhm.
Um, I never thought that the song Georgia on My Mind was going to be so ubiquitously true. Um, and it seems that Georgia today is on everybody's mind for all kinds of reasons.
Mm.
What are your thoughts about Georgia of late?
My thoughts about Georgia are, wow, I'm so glad we have Stacey Abrams.
Yes.
And I'm so glad we're now going to look at them doing this thing about voting and everything, because in the meantime, Stacey is organizing, her people are organizing. And I think to me, what it is, it's like, as Biden said, it's the new Jim Crow, and calling it. I mean, the fact that that language is being used is astounding. I mean, people have done their work.
The fact that, in some ways, I credit the last several years with um, renewed relevancy to language like the new Jim Crow, and language even that people on the news use the phrase white supremacy.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just that's kind of incredible, right? That
Absolutely
there is
incredible.
a real finally this breakthrough around the candor around these issues and how they have really animated America and continue to animate American life.
Absolutely. And if I could speak a little bit about the NCAA women's basketball final,
I knew
it's
you'd work it in there. I,
gonna go well. So it was absolutely incredible. And they did amazing video about racism and with, and young Black players. And the one that they did in the before the final, or maybe just at the halftime or after the game was over, it was gorgeous. Big companies spent a lot of money to make that happen. That's unbelievable. And Dwight, I'm watching this, I'm crying, and it's an amazing thing. And then ESPN goes, next up, the Masters. I'm like,
that capsulizes the work we have to do. That's it.
right there.
Kate, that's a good note to begin to bring us to a conclusion on. I always ask a version of this question with guests, and that is, what advice do you have for our students at the new school and other young people right now who are just some of the bravest, most courageous folks I have witnessed in my lifetime? And what advice do you have for them? What observations?
First of all, I would like to, as a boomer, a geezer boomer, I would like to apologize for what we have left you. The climate. I mean, this is the major thing we have to deal with, and it's the intersection of race, misogyny, everything. So I'd like to apologize for messing up your proms and et cetera, et cetera. But my advice, I think, is step away from your vehicle.
Mm,
That internet is incredible, computers are great, they've done amazing things, and you need to step away, step back, and know that, like an incredible mailing list, or, a huge, beautiful program to, interest people in whatever, cannot beat, just being out with
mm,
people organizing, and at
mm,
some point having dinner again, etc.
yeah.
But I would say step away from your vehicle and try to do things that involve at least 3 of your 5 senses.
I love that. I can't tell you, one, how much I look forward to being able to do that with you and Urvashi soon too.
Me too.
Thank you, my friend, for taking the time today. It means so much to me and to all of us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you.